You hear about tariffs in the news all the time, right? Usually it's framed as some big political chess move. But for the businesses actually living it, it's a super complex maze they have to figure out every single day. And that's exactly what we're going to break down here. So it really all boils down to this one question. Are tariffs just this unavoidable political headache that companies have to suffer through? Or, if you play your cards right, could they actually be a strategic goldmine? Let's dig in and find out. Okay, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. A tariff, at its core, is just a tax. It's a tax the government puts on goods coming into the country. The whole idea is pretty simple. Make the foreign stuff more expensive so that the stuff made right here at home gets a competitive edge. It's a powerful economic lever that can completely reshape a market. But, when those levers get pulled, especially without warning, they don't just gently nudge the market. No, they send a massive shockwave rippling through the entire global supply chain. So let's take a look at the immediate impact. The fallout is fast and it is widespread. I mean, imagine you're running a business. All of a sudden, your costs shoot up, your supply chain is a total mess, and shipping just grinds to a halt. And this isn't just a problem for the folks in the corner office. A lot of the time, those costs get passed straight to you and me, the consumers, in the form of higher prices. It just creates this thick fog of uncertainty for everybody. And believe me, this isn't just theory. The financial hit is very real and you can measure it. So what does this number, -4.1, actually mean? Well, it represents the average drop in what's called the financial health rating for private companies that get hit hard by these sudden tariff changes. You can think of that rating kind of like a company's credit score, and a drop like that is a direct, painful hit to their stability. And yeah, the damage is not spread evenly. As you can see here, both public and private companies definitely felt the pain. But the private companies, the ones with tighter margins and less cash lying around, they got slammed almost twice as hard. For them, that sudden pressure on costs isn't just a threat to profits, it's a real threat to their survival. Now, while all this tariff talk feels very, very modern, these kinds of trade conflicts are anything but new. I mean, they're a recurring theme all through history. And to really get what's happening now, you gotta look back. I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows you how far back this goes. You've got the Opium Wars in the 19th century, completely reshaping global trade. Then there's the infamous Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930, which many historians say actually made the Great Depression worse. And get this, there was even something called the Chicken War in the 1960s over poultry exports. The point is, these trade disputes have always been a major force shaping the global economy. What we're seeing today is really just the latest chapter in a very, very old book. All right, so given this chaotic landscape, how can businesses do more than just, tread water and survive? Well, that brings us to the real heart of this discussion, the strategic tariff playbook. It really all comes down to a fundamental shift in mindset. It's about moving beyond just reacting every time a new tariff is announced. So the question is, how do the smartest companies out there proactively use this environment to their advantage? How do they stop playing defense and start playing offense? I want you to think about it like a chess game. Of course, you have to make defensive moves, right? Things like finding new suppliers or pushing for better prices. That's like protecting your king. It's essential. But to actually win the game, you've got to go on offense. This is where companies start targeting niche markets that aren't so sensitive to price, or they even make big moves like buying other companies to control their own supply chain. Okay, let's get practical. Pricing strategy is absolutely key here. The really savvy companies, they're building renegotiation clauses right into their contracts from day one. Or they might do something clever like bundle a product that's been hit by tariffs with a high-value service. And what that does is it gets the customer thinking about the total value they're getting, not just the rising price tag on one item. And probably most important of all, they just double down on quality and innovation, giving them a real reason to justify a higher price. And the playbook just keeps going. We're seeing companies shift to subscription models to get that stable, recurring revenue. Others are using dynamic pricing that can change on the fly as costs change. Some are even buying their own raw material suppliers to control costs from the ground up. You see the pattern here, right? It is all about being proactive, not reactive. So let's ground all this strategy in the real world, because these ideas aren't just theory. And the way tariffs hit, well, it feels totally different depending on what industry you're in. The impact is unique everywhere you look. For the auto industry, boom, steel costs go through the roof. Over in agriculture, you might get slammed with retaliatory tariffs that lock you out of your biggest export markets. And what about a field like medical equipment? you might rely on one tiny, specialized component that's only made in one country, which leaves you with no choice but to just eat the cost. Every single sector is solving its own unique puzzle. But strategic planning really, really pays off. Check this out. This quote is from a real large U.S. company that was facing a massive bill from tariffs. But by putting together a detailed mitigation plan, working with their vendors, phasing in changes, they managed to save over $350 million in projected losses. That is proof right there that having a proactive plan isn't just a nice idea. It can literally save you hundreds of millions of dollars. Of course, for small businesses, it's a completely different story. It's a whole different ballgame. They just don't have the same leverage or that deep financial cushion. For them, this is often a battle for survival, pure and simple. It forces them into these incredibly tough choices: streamline everything, raise prices on loyal customers, or completely rethink their entire network of suppliers. So, after all this, what's the bottom line? Well, it all points to one thing. This isn't some temporary storm that's just going to pass. This kind of trade volatility, this constant uncertainty, it's the new normal. It's a permanent feature of the business landscape now. And in this new normal, companies are basically juggling all these major risks at once. You've got the immediate threat of your supply chain getting blown up and your costs going sky high. And layered on top of that are these bigger dangers, like geopolitical instability and trying to navigate a super complex web of legal and compliance rules. It feels like you're getting hit from all sides. So what's the ultimate takeaway here? The companies that are going to win in this environment are the ones who treat tariffs as a strategic challenge for the entire company, not just some problem to hand off to the finance department. They bring everyone to the table: finance, supply chain, legal, and they're constantly running what-if scenarios. It all boils down to building an organization that's resilient, tough, and most of all, agile. Which really brings us to our final question. In a world where these trade walls can pop up or disappear with almost no warning, is that ability to adapt on a dime, that pure organizational agility, is that now the single most important competitive advantage a business can have? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.